Ancient Weapon Uranus is finally here. Vegapunk keeps up the insane reveals, including about why Joy Boy could have been evil. The elders finally know where the Den Mushi they're looking for is and what OP character is protecting it, and more happens in this insane chapter, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Chill the Pirate King within and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing these One Piece reviews on the channel and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you join the Nakama by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece videos and updates. And now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So this chapter called Conflict starts where the last one left off, with reactions to Vegapunk's words when he told everyone that the war that Joy Boy, the first pirate, and his crew were fighting against what became the world government is still going on to this day. That war led to the sea rising 200 meters, and now the rising has begun again. Crazy to think that what happened to Lulusia caused a 1 meter rise, and Doflamingo said most cities would be wiped out with an extra 5 meters. So imagine how much people suffered back then. And also imagine how strong and influential Joy Boy and his crew might have been if the world government ended up having to use it 200 times. Insane to think about, and that's clearly not an option this time around because most of humanity and dry land for that matter would not survive that again. We see more reactions and people are asking about this war from 800 years ago. People say, and I quote, "The war from 800 years ago is still going on. Where? But no one from that time is even alive anymore. Why is a war that no one knows of still going on, Vegapunk?" End quote. Now we know that of course there are people / creatures like Zunesha, the ancient giant, and probably Emu who were around then. And even more people who know of that war and were also around for a very long time, like the 5 elders. But it makes sense that most people would rationally assume that everyone from that time who knows about this war is dead. So in theory, there should be no one left to continue waging that old war. But there's nothing rational about all this. As Vegapunk continues talking, we see Emu in the Room of Flowers, walking to a portrait half hidden in a shadow of a lady who looks similar to Vivi. So this could be a proper image of Vivi's ancestor, Nefertari the Lily, the one who betrayed the other monarchs. But if we were hoping Emu would give us a definitive answer, we'd be sorely mistaken. All we get from Emu is another, and I quote, ... end quote. Man, these ... are killing me. But I guess it is building the suspense, and it wouldn't really make sense in the world of the story for Emu to just tell us everything we want to know right here. Speaking of the Nefertari, we jump to Alabasta and we see Igaram and Karu crying over Vivi's missing poster, which is adorable. Thankfully, we know she's safe with Morgan's at the moment, and there are more pressing matters for the world government, obviously, than tracking her down right now. Meanwhile, on a more somber note, we see Pell and Chaka standing next to King Cobra's tomb. As we know, Emu killed him, and Flame Emperor Sabo, despite his best efforts, failed to save him. Vegapunk then reveals that he realized a fraction of Mother Flame was stolen, and it was used to fuel one of the ancient weapons. And as he speaks about ancient weapons, we see Momo and Crocodile, who himself has been obsessed with ancient weapons since the beginning. Before any spoilers dropped, I saw a Reddit post notification recently about how Cross-Guild and Rayleigh reactions haven't been shown yet, and people wondering why. But it's funny how Oda gives us both right here in the very next chapter. We'll get to Rayleigh's crazy one later though. But I think what a lot of us theorized came true in a roundabout way. The Mother Flame definitely seemed connected to an ancient weapon when it was used on Lulusia. Specifically, it seemed like Uranus. And FYI, Uranus was always gonna be the sky weapon, since Uranus was the personification of the sky and literally translates to sky or heaven in English. And we weren't wrong, but it's a bit more complicated. The Mother Flame clearly turned out to be fuel for it, and fractions of the Mother Flame can be used to activate Uranus to devastating results. So the world government had and has Uranus, no big shocker there, but needed the Mother Flame missing piece of the puzzle to use it. This is why York is potentially useful too, because she can potentially fill in any blanks that the world government has about the Mother Flame. I am curious to learn more about the Mother Flame though. I can see it potentially being something that keeps on burning if it's held in the right conditions, like an Olympic flame sort of, and if you take it bit by bit, it will just replenish and you can keep using it. However, who knows, a Mother Flame could be finite, or perhaps it could be recreated from scratch repeatedly if you know how. Either way, definitely gives me Prometheus vibes, Prometheus being the one who gave fire to humans in the first place. A lot of unknowns at the moment, but still this was some big news from Vegapunk. Vegapunk continues to spill the beans on the world government. He reveals that Lulusia Kingdom was destroyed by an ancient weapon activated with quote-unquote my Mother Flame. He says, and I quote, "I'm so sorry for letting the ancient weapons be revived. I don't know who used it, but I'm totally sure the world is at risk of flooding again," end quote. First off, I'm so glad that the world now knows what happened to Lulusia, because I would have hated to see erased and forgotten just like that, but looks like Vegapunk doesn't know the world government was behind the Lulusia tragedy, which is important to note. As this chapter goes on, it really emphasizes that there is quite a lot even Vegapunk doesn't know, and even less genius-like characters, like Rayleigh and Crocus, know a lot more about some of the most important stuff than Vegapunk does, as we'll get to. Thus, even with this worldwide reveal, there are many things he simply can't shed light on because he also doesn't know. But at least he can let everyone know that they are at risk of flooding, though I don't know what he expects most can do about it, even if they have that information, but we'll talk about that and what it means for revolutionaries later on. We cut to Moda, the milkmaid turned revolutionary from Lulusia Kingdom, and to Vice Admiral Komil. Both were in Ace's cover story adventures as he searched for Blackbeard, so nice to see Oda putting them together here again in this chapter. I love this man's attention to detail and how he rewards close readers. Anyways, both Moda and the Vice Admiral have shocked reactions when they discover Lulusia Kingdom was destroyed by the ancient weapon. In Proden's Kingdom, King Elizabello II asks one of his advisors to check on Lulusia Kingdom at once, since there's no news about Lulusia disappearing. But this reminds me of what Vegapunk said before too. Because of the nature of the world now and how it consists of many islands instead of continents, it really makes it a lot easier to control people. If people don't ever leave their villages usually because the ocean is considered dangerous, then it's easier to control them and lie to them. An entire island can disappear and people may not figure it out because of the nature of this world of islands. Clearly, looking at the end result, the flooding back then made it easier for the world government to divide, conquer, and control the world. We then cut to New Marineford and we see Sengoku and Tsuru's reactions. Sengoku is stuffing snacks into his mouth because he's stress eating, while Sakazuki is dealing with it in another way, and we see he's burning a cigar in his hand. Sakazuki says, and I quote, "So you are really saying everything." Back to Egghead and to Stussy specifically. As I mentioned last chapter, after Stella's death, she was having a Mewtwo-esque struggle, wondering what's the point of living on as a clone. She has no more raison d'etre, aka reason to live. It turns out though that she did have a bond with the other CP0 members, even though she prioritized Vegapunk when it came down to it. She asks Edison to allow her to let Kaku go because she saw Cypherpole agents falling to the middle of the island with no way to escape. Edison apologizes for ordering her to betray Cypherpole since he knows Stussy really does see them as her friends, despite her very real loyalty to Vegapunk. Edison uses this to make her see her own humanity, saying such conflict in your heart is what makes you human, Stussy. We then catch up to greedy trader York, who is shocked that Stella knew about the Mother Flame being stolen, since she didn't synchronize any of her secret activities to Punk Records. And that right there is how we can explain how some satellites can know things that others don't. They can pick and choose what they synchronize. And I told you guys, York will be a big threat. Only a Vegapunk can challenge Vegapunk, it seems, and here York does in fact deduce that since Vegapunk knew the world government is coming for him, he wouldn't just quote-unquote hide the special Denden Mushi. She calls the 5 elders and says, "I know where the special Denden Mushi is. The ancient robot is currently protecting it," end quote. So yes, that hype Joy Boy ally that has been randomly shown here and there, albeit in hype fashion, is now becoming a focal point and a target for the elders, meaning we will finally get to see what it is capable of and hopefully learn more about it. Then we get a huge reveal from Vegapunk. He says that Joy Boy planned to pass on all 3 ancient weapons to later generations. Vegapunk doesn't understand why Joy Boy tried to do such a thing, and that's why he cannot say which side is good or evil in this conflict. So finally we have Vegapunk's reason for why he can't label Joy Boy as the good guy in this war. And you can understand where he's coming from, since why would you want to pass down ways of destroying the world and creating unspeakable horrors for the people in it? It's a good question, and let me know what you think the reason is down in the comments. I do personally think that there will be a good reason for it. In our own world, we justify such weapons by saying they will deter war, but I don't know how reasonable that is here, where the existence of other ancient weapons don't seem to be stopping the world government. Then there's the possibility that maybe the weapons can't be destroyed for good, so it's important to make sure they are passed down to the right people if possible, or perhaps within a weapon can lie the key to reversing its effect as well. Like maybe Uranus holds the possibility of lowering the sea level too. It's all speculation at this point, but I assume we'll get a good explanation and that Joy Boy won't turn out to be the evil guy Vegapunk fears he could have been. But I gotta admit, an evil Joy Boy would be a pretty crazy twist. Vegapunk is certain that all will become clear one day too, and says as much. He says, and I quote, "And on that day, the world will be at risk of flooding again. This is my warning," end quote. Speaking of ancient weapons, we see Shirahoshi and Fishman reactions when Vegapunk talks about Joy Boy passing on ancient weapons. Vegapunk adds that there are still many mysteries about the Void Century, but there's one group of people that knows everything, the Pirate King and his crew. As Vegapunk talks about the Roger Pirates, we get to see Crocus in Twin Cape, but don't worry, that's not all. Vegapunk says they learned the truth about that part of history. Why did they disappear without telling anyone anything? Why didn't they act? And as if Oda wants to give them a chance to defend themselves, we cut to the Dark King, Rayleigh himself, at Shaki's ripoff bar. Shaki is beating a pirate while she talks to Rayleigh. "Ray-san," she says, "you're drinking too much. It isn't like you to be getting drunk like that." Rayleigh is sitting on the stool with his head on top of the bar. He's clearly getting drunk. He says, "Ugh, I'm just an old geezer now. And you talk too much, Vegapunk. An old man like you shouldn't ruin the young generation's excitement, idiot." He places his drink on the bar while he smiles and gets nostalgic, saying, "Now it's their quote-unquote fun. Right, Roger?" So nothing surprising there. We know that Oda feels the same as Rayleigh, and he would never let Vegapunk spill all the beans and ruin the fun before the Straw Hats can discover it themselves. The editor reaffirms once again, saying, and I quote, "He who knows the truth simply laughs," end quote. And we already knew that truth from Roger and Laughtale, but here we have it coming up again. All in all, Vegapunk dropped some big reveals, but didn't, and Oda wouldn't let him, in fact, ruin the final hilarious truth/discovery for the Straw Hats. Either way, the people of the world now have a better idea of the world they are living in, of the dangers they face, and maybe even who their enemy might be. I personally think this will make the work of Dragon the Revolutionaries easier because people now know that if they sit by and do nothing, they could just be waiting to drown, or even worse, for an ancient weapon to erase them. And chances are, we still get some more crazy reveals from Vegapunk, even if he doesn't know everything, because yes, they know where the special Denden Mushi should be, but for now, they are nowhere near actually destroying it. It would be a flex though if Vegapunk said everything he had to say like just before they were about to destroy the Denden Mushi, so that they literally accomplished nothing, and by that time Luffy and the others are already long gone, having escaped. Let's see if it pans out something like that. But if you enjoyed learning more about Joy Boy and the Void Century in this chapter, then you won't want to miss our recent video, link on screen right now, where we dive deeper into what Joy Boy's war was actually about. Like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.